I'm introducing the Foxy Wagon, 1984 Mercury Marquis wagon. It's called the Foxy Wagon because it's on a Fox Body Mustang chassis. That's about the only nice name that I have for this one. I have to be honest, I am not the biggest fan of the looks of those, but I love wagons, and it's been a good car, so I can't complain about it too much. This is the newest car that I own. It is also the only vehicle that I own that has fuel injection. Normally I shudder when I say those words out loud. Of course, I prefer carburetors. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. I got this one from a pilot friend of mine who used to have it out at his hangar at the airport, and he would use it during the summer times when he flew up and drive it into town. So it's got super low mileage. It's really clean. It's got 50,000, just under 50,000 on the odometer. But he called me up one day and said, well, do you want a wagon? I've got one out at my hangar that we're going to get rid of. And I said, yeah, I'm interested in a wagon. I've always been a fan of wagons. And he said, well, it's a 1984 Mercury. And right away, my heart skipped a beat. Is it a big wagon? And he said, yeah, it's a big wagon. It's a full-size wagon. And it runs and drives. We don't need it anymore. We're going to replace it. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll take it. I'm a little busy and I can't get over there right now, but I'm interested. And he said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, it runs. Why don't I just drive it over to your airport lot and I'll leave it there. And I'll take the battery that I'm going to put in there. And I said, yeah, all right, great. A few days after, I was all excited and drove out to my airport lot to see my new wagon. And that's when I realized it's a mid-size wagon. It's not a full-size. It's not the Grand Marquis. It's the Marquis. And to me, the mid-sized wagons, the proportions have always just looked a little bit off. It seems like the roof is a little bit higher. Seems like those side doors have a little bit too tall of windows. And so first when I saw it, I thought, oh no, I've got an ugly duckling, and I just let it sit there. I wasn't going to do anything with it. I noticed as well that the headliner had been falling out. There was scraps of it left that I have since ripped off. But the interior was clean. Other than it being fuel injected, I was intrigued enough. But I was really hoping for a full-size wagon. So I let it sit there, and years went by. And last winter, I needed to finish up my pilot's license, and I was driving about an hour and a half one way to do that. And it was getting to be too cold to drive the Falcon up there. And I thought, well, I need a beater with a heater. So what am I going to do? And I remembered this wagon was sitting out there, and I remembered that it ran, and I thought, well, even though it's not my favorite body style, I'm going to go and fix up that wagon and just see if I can use that. So I went out to the airport lot, and I went to start it, and it turned over and wouldn't start. And I thought, well, I can't just pour gas in the carb, but it was a throttle body injected. They call it a CFI. Looks like a throttle body injector. And so I poured a little bit of gas in there, and it fired right up. And so I thought, okay, well, it's a fuel system. Surprise, surprise, fuel injected car. That's going to be the problem, the fuel pumps most likely. So I went to get new fuel pumps in there, and when I dropped the tank to get the tank pump in there, I noticed the most horrendous rust piles inside the gas tank. I don't know how the car ran a few years prior, but it definitely needed a new tank, it needed new pumps. I put a new filter in there. And it was full of varnished gas, and I went to take the tank out of there, and it tipped off the floor jack and spilled gasoline, just nasty varnished gasoline all over the floor of my shop. I mean, probably close to 4 gallons of gas. It sloshed onto me as I was trying to pick up the gas tank and get it out of the shop door. And that was how I started my relationship with this fuel-injected station wagon. Another funny story, when I got it home and was going through all of the different things that I wanted to do with it, I noticed that it was blowing cold air after I finally got it running. And I thought, well, that's weird. Seems like I should have heat. And I opened up the hood and noticed that the heater core had been eliminated. They had taken the heater hose and just made a loop in the system, in the engine, and so the heater core wasn't hooked up. And I thought, well, I know what that means. The heater core went out, and makes sense that he only drives it in the summer. Yeah, heater core, no big deal. I've done that all the time. Well, let me tell you, heater cores in a Fox Body Mustang are unbelievably difficult to change. If you happen to get a Fox Body chassis and you're going to replace a heater core, do yourself a favor and throw the car away. That was the most horrendous job. It made my 4-gallon varnish gas shower seem like a joy. The entire dash had to be taken out. The entire vent system had to be taken out. And even then, I scraped up my forearms so bad trying to get the heater core out from around the tiny little passageway that they gave you to get the heater core out. I do not recommend that job to anyone. However, I replaced the heater core and I have nice, strong heat ever since then. So it was worth it. And now I'm getting good use out of that replaced heater core. So I've gotten all of the bad experiences out of the way, and now I've moved on to only good experiences with it. The front grille had been cracked, and luckily I had a Ford LTD that was the same year, and so I took the grille out of the Ford. The little trim piece that goes on the hood is also from that LTD, so it's not quite as tall as the original Mercury, but it's still, it makes the front end look pretty nice. When I replaced the fuel tank, I replaced the sending unit, and when I put it back in there, I realized that it wasn't getting fuel. And I took the tank back out a second time, the new tank, and noticed that the sending unit that I had got was from a sedan. And the sedan sending units were shorter. So I had to extend the hose down into the tank further with the pump on there so that I could get fuel. And I tried my best to get the fuel gauge to line up, but the gauge on the sending unit just would not go. And so with a full tank of gas, that is as high as my gas gauge will go. And I remedy that by doing the trip odometer and also the fancy digital readout on the dashboard even has a setup where you can see how much fuel you've used. And the book says that is more accurate than the fuel gauge somehow, which I don't really understand how you would be able to say that with such conviction. But I've noticed that this is pretty accurate. I'll give them credit. It's pretty accurate. It's usually pessimistic, which is good. When it says that I've used 0.8 gallons, I've probably used half a gallon. So I have not run out yet since I've made the sending unit taller than it's supposed to be. And I put in a radio, a new stereo system, and the trim from the original radio was in good shape, but that LTD had already been cut apart, and so I put the wood grain LTD trim around the radio, which I think was a good fit. Makes that awesome noise anytime the key is on and the door is open. Even if the key is off and the door is open, it makes that noise. That is not my favorite part about this car. Normally, I drive with the seats down, but you could also put the seats up if you wanted. Still, nice shape. Gotta love the extra cargo space that stays nice and dry. You can see I didn't get all the headliner. I got most of it. It doesn't have the rear way back seat, which is a bummer. Those must have been for the full-size wagons only. That was always my favorite part as a kid, sitting in the way back seat. One thing that I've noticed when this fuel system gets really warm, it does not seem to want to start. And so I've got my nice container of gasoline here. Don't be fooled by the nice label. You would not want to drink this. But with a little splash of that inside the CFI, it turns into a goer again. The V6 is a pretty nice engine for this. It moves the car down the road really well, gets great gas mileage. And if I wanted to, I could even put in a V8. Wouldn't that be fun? That would really make it go down the road. You can see how nicely it starts up for us. Those fuel pumps working, not too far away, but it's not terribly loud. We'll see how long it takes me to put a carbureted V8 in here. But for now, I'm going to drive it around as is. It's been a good car to me. I've cruised it down the highway for many cold miles in the wintertime, heater blasting. And I did not think that it would be the case, but I get so many thumbs up and waves and people talking about this car. It's unbelievable to me. Seems like every time I stop at the gas station, people will come up to me, and it doesn't matter who they are, whether they're moms with kids in the car or, grandpas. they're giving me thumbs up as I drive past. And I think it's hilarious. I did not expect the reaction that I get from people when they see this one on the road. The other day I had to go up to the mall of all places, and so I drove it on a road trip up to Duluth, and I mean, you know, where else do you drive your 1984 station wagon but the mall, right? And when I got out of the store, I was walking past two older guys, and they were talking about, you know, well, I had the Pinto version of well, I had something, and they were close enough to my car that I stopped and turned around after I walked past them, and I said, "Are you talking about that wagon over there?" And they said, "Yeah, oh man, that's awesome. That's a great one." And I said, "Yeah, that's mine. It's a Mercury Marquis. It's a good car. It's been a good car." And I was laughing about how they were saying it was a classic, and that was actually the newest one that I owned, and they like to hear that. I got a good chuckle out of that. But that's what I mean. It's like, you know, there are people all over the place that walk up to me and love to see the wagon on the road. And I gotta admit, even though it's a mid-sized wagon, it's not the full size. It's a pretty cool car. Well, there you go. Hope you enjoyed the video about the Foxy Wagon. Maybe you'll see me on the road going to get groceries or going to fly a plane around in the wintertime. And you can know that I have the heater on full, and I'm enjoying my cruise in my modern fuel-injected station wagon. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and subscribe. It helps me make more videos. And as always, stick with Mad Eye Metal.